Scooby-Doo is a title that holds so many interesting possibilities. The characters, iconography, and classic whodunit mystery setup can be approached in so many different ways. From a Saturday morning kids cartoon to a crude adult show to movies that are crafted well enough to be absorbing to all ages, to goofy meta live action movies that have an awareness of the property's legacy, to a CGI theatrical movie that completely misunderstands the property's legacy. The title is just so flexible and can go from as goofy, juvenile, and disposable as possible to something more gritty and mature and serious. I, for one, would love to see a new live-action Scooby-Doo movie that was more grounded and dark and had a genuinely compelling mystery that smartly unfolds. So, I'm gonna pick my ideal cast for this hypothetical reboot/reimagining/adaptation. I'd love it if it took notes from Scooby-Doo Zombie Island, because that film did a great job at crafting an interesting, unique mystery, fleshing out the beloved characters, and subverting the formula while also remaining very true to the DNA of the property. I would stick with a younger cast to portray teenagers or young adults in their early 20s, so don't expect any middle-aged folk to appear in this casting. So let's get to it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on my thoughts, and I'd like to hear your picks as well. Okay, let's start off with the lovably awkward, scaredy cat hippie and possible stoner, Shaggy. I was really thinking of who could truly embody the spirit and essence of this character in a way that is undeniable and classic, but also exciting and fresh. Because Matthew Lillard really was the definitive live-action Shaggy. I'd like to see an actor portray the role who wouldn't have to go as big and exaggerated and goofy as Matthew Lillard was, but could still effortlessly exude that same energy in a more realistic manner. So I've chosen George Lindeborg Jr., who you may know from Bumblebee, Love, Simon, and Spider-Man Homecoming. I think he's just the perfect choice, as he definitely has Shaggy's gawky, goofy sensibilities, but in a grounded way, and he's definitely likable. He's the ideal Shaggy for me, as it's really hard to find that fine line between cartoony and realistic for a character like this, but he could definitely provide all the charms and quirks of the character while still coming across like an actual human. So yeah, I think he's perfect, and I'd love to see him in the role. Okay, next, let's do Fred, the leader of the gang, the jock who is kinda dumb and just gets by with his good looks. And for this role, I'm just gonna play it a little safe, with a safe, suitable choice. I'm gonna go with Drew Starkey from Outer Banks and Hellraiser, the reboot. This kinda speaks for itself. He's very traditional Fred, and his star is on the rise with some of the projects he's involved in, so yeah, I like him in this role, and I really have nothing more to say, just traditional, suitable Fred. I did have some alternative choices for Fred that I find honestly a bit more interesting and spicy, but I'll explain why I didn't use them at the end of the video, which is kind of pathetic, but still. Let's move on to Daphne, the fashionable damsel in distress who has over the years become independent and driven to avoid her danger-prone tendencies, but still embraces her femininity. I think Whitney Peak from HBO's Gossip Girl reboot and Hocus Pocus 2 would be an excellent fit, as she definitely has a striking feminine presence and fashionable sensibilities, but also has a strong-minded, outspoken nature to her that has become identifiable with the character. Give her some red hair in a shade that suits her, and she would be an instantly iconic iteration of that character. Okay, lastly, we have Velma Dinkley, the smart, savvy, nerdy character and lesbian icon. So I think a more digestible, safe choice would be somebody like Maisie Williams from Game of Thrones, who I definitely wouldn't mind in the role. I think she'd be great. But my personal choice may be one where you need to be familiar with the actor's work to see the vision. I don't know if you'd be able to immediately picture her in the role, but she definitely brings so much to the character. So my choice is Taylor Russell from Bones and All, Waves, and Escape Room. If you've ever seen her act, she has a unique quality to her where she does seem kind of mousy and introverted and quirky and thoughtful and intelligent, but in a non-stereotypical way. So I really think she could embody the essence of the character, but with a special approach. So that's my cast, but here's the funny thing. With this casting, I was of course looking at options that I'd personally like to see, that I'd find exciting, people who I think can really provide the spirit of the characters, and I realized after I had my initial lineup that they were all black actors. Even Fred, I initially chose Mason Gooding for the role, and I honestly would prefer him over Drew Starkey, but I didn't want this to come across as the black version of Scooby-Doo. I just wanted it to come across as Scooby-Doo with colorblind casting. If that makes sense, I really hope you don't take that the wrong way. I mean, like in the way that the 2016 Ghostbusters became known as the female Ghostbusters because they were all female, and yeah, I'm sort of digging myself into a hole, but I did look into all races for the characters, and I did sort of like Remy High and Ross Butler for Fred, but they're a bit too old, and I just loved all the choices for the other actors, so yeah, I mean, there are plenty of choices, like Joe Carey as Shaggy, Charithra Chandran as Daphne, Simone Ashley as Daphne. I just am giving my ultimate choices, so who are your ultimate choices for this hypothetical Scooby-Doo movie that I don't want to be hypothetical anymore because it's long overdue? Okay, let me know. Love you. Well, love some of you. Okay. Bye.